Welcome to Cigar Talks with NWB. Just kidding. It's a nice evening to have one, and I asked you guys to ask me pre-contest questions. By the way, I did not forget about the relationships during contest prep questions I had you guys ask me on Instagram. That video's coming. It's going to be a good one featuring Ariana. But in the meantime, I figured I'd have some fun since we're 3 weeks out from the show now. So starting from the top, do you think 3 weeks are enough to get stage ready? I wouldn't recommend being where I am and trying to get stage ready in 3 weeks. I'm double timing it, which can be detrimental to gains or retaining muscle, and it's just miserable. I started pretty short notice as it was, 13 weeks, but then on top of that, I straight off my diet like week 7 and 6 and 8 when I was traveling to Texas. I really set myself back. I was arrogant. I was like, I can just crunch down and kill it these last 6 weeks when I get home. And now I'm paying that price. If I were aiming for like a pro qualifier or really about this bodybuilding life like I was back in the day, well then no, I'd probably want to take a lot more time for a show right now, but this isn't a pro qualifier, it's not a pro show, it's not a national show, and I'm definitely going to bring in the best package I've ever brought to date, period. Better than any show I've ever done in the past, better than a shoot, obviously. So my goal is still to bust my ass, and I'm suffering right now, trust me. I'm all in. And bring the best package. When do you start peaking? The day of the show or before? I mean, peak week starts the week before the show typically, and it's different for everybody. Most people at least carb deplete, flatten way out, so that way the day before the show usually, and then the day of the show they can carb way up and fill out. And because you've been so long without carbs, your muscles just explode in the best way possible. You don't get bloated from the carbs, you get full and hard and sharp looking. Some people go as extreme as to manipulate their sodium levels and their water intake. I personally think if you're lean enough, you don't really have to worry about the water. If you're on certain drugs and diuretics, that's a whole different thing. Do you tan in a tanning bed before comps? Are you currently? Yes and yes, although I've recently stopped tanning in tanning beds just because it's been nice out, so I've just been coming out and laying on my deck and reading during the day. And that's been doing the trick. I don't think it's anything to stress too hard. People swear it creates a nicer base for underneath your spray tan, and I guess it does, but I think like the difference isn't astronomical. I mean, I've seen really pasty white guys look nice and bronze after they get a deep spray tan. So when, how often, and how long do you practice your posing, and do you get coached on that? Now, I recommend practicing it every single night, starting from the beginning of your prep. I mean, you can be starting 15 weeks out practicing posing every night. The more you practice, the better. Posing is everything. Even just the confidence you deliver your posing in. If two guys are on stage and one is sitting there nervous, shaking from adrenaline and being out of breath and grimacing, not even realize they're grimacing because it gets hard up there physically, and the other guy is posing, but it's fluid. He gracefully enters into this position and he's smiling the whole way for the judges, and he's gracefully rotating ever so slightly for all angles to see. I mean, that guy's just going to stand out so much better to the judges, and psychologically, because they're not computers, that's going to really resonate with the average human, with the average judge. They're going to be like, wow, that is a better package presentation there, even just subliminally. So that is key. That said, I haven't been practicing that much because I don't have a good place to practice in my house. It's the damnedest thing. All my powerlifting years made it so I forgot to get a posing room. But I've been going to ENAC at least once a week to practice in-depthly. And honestly, the thing that saves me is I did it for so many years competitively, and I did get coached by some of the best bodybuilders under it when I was competing as a teen and a junior, that it's kind of like riding a bike to me now. I'll see little tweaks I need to make, but it's all small enough to where if I just film myself and play it back, I can see it. Like in the last video, the carbohydrate video, at the end of that, one of the things I noticed is when I did my my front lat spread, I kept my feet a little too far apart. Legs still looked really good, but I could bring my feet together just a little bit more next time. You know, small little things like that. If I really have a question on something I'm unsure about, does this look better, does that look better, I'll send it to someone who knows what they're talking about, like my boy Nick Pinheiro. He's a good outside perspective for that. How does bodybuilding peak week differ from physique? I don't know anything about competing in physique, but assuming, because physique also involves you losing as much body fat as possible and coming in as ripped as possible, I'm assuming it's got to be along the same lines. Carb depletion, carb up. I mean, that's just common sense for anything that involves displaying a lean, ripped physique. Creatine use pre-contest. What's your strategy on cutting water? I think creatine's fine, as long as it's just a regular monohydrate or hydrochloride. Just don't get any fancy mix. Regular creatine, taken every day, shouldn't hold any water. As far as water cutting goes, so I've done water cutting. I don't think I'm going to stress about it too much this time around because, again, there's a lot of pros and cons to water cutting, and I'm talking to you assuming you're not on a stack of drugs. If you're an IFBB pro, Mr. Olympia, whole different ball game with the drugs they're on, the diuretics they're on, that's different. But assuming you're not, even if you're on only just a little bit of drugs, it's still going to be the same sort of deal as being natural. There's pros and cons. Basically, water cutting is what you do is if you're not quite stage lean and you need to create that illusion of being slightly more lean, because if you do dehydrate yourself, it will make you look like you're like 2% leaner. But the problem is, if you dehydrate yourself, you're also dehydrating the muscles along with that, and you'll find that you might be a little flatter as well. You need water for the carbs to be able to fill you up. If you don't have any water with the carb intake, you're not going to get full. So there's pros and cons. You can dehydrate, you might look a little leaner. You're also going to risk looking a little bit flatter. You know, people talk about subcutaneous water versus your body works on homeostasis. It tries to keep everything balanced. So the idea of trying to drain water, only one specific type of water or one area of water from your body while keeping in another area of your body doesn't really work in practice thanks to homeostasis. So when I did do it, water load, not crazy like when I tried to make weigh-in for that powerlifting meet, not insane like that, but I would water load moderately, drinking a lot of water all throughout the week, right up until, say your show is on Saturday morning, I would drink all the way up until about Friday night at around 7 p.m. and then cut it out at 7 p.m. and body would keep peeing, you'd dehydrate, you'd wake up dry the next day. You know, and that's a very moderate one. That's not crazy. That wouldn't be enough to like make you make a weigh-in. But that was a good way to do it without killing myself, and I'd sip water as needed. And I would dehydrate a little bit to the point where, you know, maybe your pee's not super clear, but you're not dehydrated to the point where you're cramping and about to pass out, which is, it's a good balance right there. Toughest mental challenges while prepping. Eating. Getting over the eating and the appetite, and it was cool because I learned a lot about myself. I developed a real fucking binge eating disorder, which is nuts. It's very common in the fitness industry. And I highly recommend the book that I just got and read called Brain Over Binge. I got it off Amazon. Really helpful for helping you identify and understand that if that's an issue you have. But it's extremely common for anybody who started dieting, especially hardcore dieting, the unhealthy levels of dieting we in bodybuilding do, at a young age like I did. So that was interesting. So because of that, it's like, you know, I'm on 2,000 calories right now. You would think I'm on 500 mentally because it's just killing me. And that book actually helped me a lot. But that's been it, man, just fighting the appetite. That's it. How much salt is in your diet? I don't know. A decent amount. I have salted almonds almost with every meal at the moment. And I put a little bit of salt in my lettuce. Other than that, nothing. You know, whatever sodium's naturally in chicken, and some animal tissue has sodium. But if your sodium intake's consistent and it's not like off the charts, you really have nothing to worry about unless you're worried about water manipulation, which you shouldn't be worried about that unless you have to make a weigh-in or something. Or peak week if you're going to do water manipulation for your show. Best way to go from a cut to a bulk. Reverse diet required. What's the point of reverse? So even as someone who's done reverse dieting, to be very honest, it's more or less just a fancy name for just a slow, controlled, clean bulk. You're essentially, the goal is, I think it's just a better way to word it because people hear bulk or they think bulk and they automatically think stuff their face. Reverse dieting in my case was just bumping calories back up by another 300 or 500 calories, you know, and until and you'll start seeing yourself respond to that. And when that starts to plateau, that's not enough. You're getting drained, you're not recovering. Bump up calories a little bit more. That's why they call it reverse dieting. You're just bringing your calories back up, your calorie maintenance back up again, but you're just doing it step by step as needed and gradually, the same way you dive into a diet. You don't just go from 4,000 calories to 2,000 calories. You drop just 300 to 500 calories at first, then more as needed, then more as needed gradually. That's why they call it reverse dieting, because you're building calories back up, but you're just doing it the same way you brought them down. Shave or wax? How often? Well, if you're referring to before I step on stage, I just shave. Easiest way. I go in the shower, I use a little plastic razor, the Gillette. I'm naturally very hairless, Native American. I'm getting my tan on for the show Friday at noon, so I'll probably shave Thursday night or early Friday morning. But that'll be it. As far as how often goes, I mean, I don't touch my hair outside of when I need to like that. I just let it grow naturally. Do you cut Walden Farms or any other calorie-free sauces? If so, how far out from the show? The only thing I use condiment-wise is mustard right now. It's calorie-free, it's very low sodium, and I'll use that right up until the day of the show. I've never really understood, like I've heard old school bodybuilders talk about cutting out artificial sweeteners and stuff like that. I never really understood it. I don't know why. How do you set up carb cycling? That's totally dependent on the person, on where you're at, what you need, and what you respond to. Everyone's different. What works for me may not work for you. So like what I used to do is, just for the sake of keeping a regimen, I would do like maybe 2 high carb days. Maybe the weekend was high carb. Then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, low carb. You know, or Monday and Tuesday would be low carb. Then Wednesday would be high carb. Then Thursday and Friday, low carb. Then the weekend, high carb. You know, you can split it up. Sometimes I've done it where it's like the weekend's high carb, weekdays are all low carb. At the moment, I'm doing one high carb day, Friday or Saturday, all very low carbs, and then a moderate carb on Wednesday. All very low carbs, and then repeat. So, and some people don't even need to do carb cycling. So it all just depends on what you respond to, what you enjoy doing, and what you need. What you do after the show, back to powerlifting? Absolutely. When do you start feeling the diet, and what do you experience? I mean, depends on what you mean by feeling. Technically, you feel the diet the first day you cut calories, and you're dying for that first craving that hits you. But I mean, it really hit me like 4 weeks out. It's always 4 weeks out for me. That's when like the real suffering starts. And, you know, it's a combination of what I talked about in my birthday video, where that serene peace of mind does sort of kick in from just the cleansing of dopamine and constant stimulus. You also feel fucking hungry and really tired. Like right now I'm 3 weeks out and I'm feeling physically just drained. I'm on 2,000 calories and I'm training 3 times a day. Once weights, twice cardio. So I'm feeling like really drained of energy. Your body starts to really slow things down. It's its way of preserving energy because it thinks it's starving to death in a diet, and I'm feeling that. Like I'm walking, I feel like I'm lumbering now. Like my steps are slower. That's where I'm at now, 3 weeks out. This is the hardest. This is the first bad day I've had in this whole prep, diet wise. I've been great. Today's the first day I was really struggling, just really fucking hungry. And this is the first day I was ever like, I can't do this. I can't do 3 more weeks of this. But of course we're gonna stick it out. Ever come close to a breakup as your competition got closer? No, because I have a solid ass relationship. I'm grateful for that, and Ariana and I are gonna sit down and talk about that, like we discussed in the other video I mentioned. I 1000% can see and am reminded how this lifestyle can strain and even end a relationship. It absolutely can. I mean, it's no surprise to me looking back how doing this really did lead to the end of so many past relationships when I was younger. And you see it all the time in bodybuilding. Very selfish sport, without a doubt. And I can see it now, like where I'm at, thank God. You know, me and Ariana are fantastic at communicating constantly. And that's a major key. So we communicate things. I'm very open with her, how I'm feeling, what's going on in my head, where my energy levels are at. I'll tell her this right away. And her, me. And then we're both on the same page. But I'll tell you what, if her and I were like a newer relationship, or we just didn't have the solid foundation we have, for a weaker relationship, I could definitely see it straining it. But actually, ironically, her and I have been fantastic. A bit gross, but how do you handle the digestion issues that come at the end of prep? Honestly, I don't get many digestion issues. I get more when I have more calories in me. I think at this point, I have so few calories in me, there's not a whole lot of issue. I'm just hungry all the time. And the only issue I'll have is on these low carb days, get a little constipated. Not severely. It's just because fiber is harder to come by on lower carbs. That's why I supplement with fiber. And then B, I think I have so few calories, it's just not eager to flush through me as readily as when I have a lot of calories piling in. So personally, I mean, everything cleans up for me. You know, bowel movements are more clean and normal by structure, if that makes sense. Just a little bit more plugged up than usual, but not dramatically. Will you be using any diuretics? No. I don't think diuretics are really ever a good thing unless you absolutely need them. With dieting down, have you seen an increase or decrease in sexual drive? Serious question. And a great question that I got a lot, and that will be answered in Ariana in my video coming up. When should you cut out artificial sweeteners, Monsters, Walden Farms? again, man, I'm using those right up until I really already have backed off on energy drinks, only because of the hidden calories in energy drinks. Like, I love Christian's 3D energy drinks, but the problem is it says 0 because you're allowed to put 0 calories. That's why you should always track your macros. Never go by the calories, go by the macros, because his is listed as 0 calories, but it's not. It has 7 grams of carbohydrates in it. So you're drinking like 30 calories. You know, when carbs are restricted to only 65 grams a day, well, there go 7 of them in a freaking drink. So that's why I cut out the energy drinks. But it's just because of the hidden calories. But as far as artificial sweeteners go, no, like I still drink diet soda all the time. And even those have slight hidden calories, but they're literally almost nothing. But yeah, I see nothing wrong with I don't know why. The only thing I can think of why you would want to cut out artificial sweeteners is simply because they might make you crave more things that are tasty after you have them. And if they do, then yeah, maybe it's a good idea to cut them out just so you're not going crazy craving stuff. But they have no effect on fat gain at all. I don't even old school bro people, I've never heard a good argument for it. I think I've heard like, oh, they cause an insulin response. What does insulin have to do with anything? Insulin is something that is secreted when there's simply glucose in your system to store. But the storing only goes as far as your calorie intake allows it to. So if you're in a deficit, lipolysis comes and breaks down that lipogenesis, and no harm, no foul. I don't know what the fuck insulin has to do with anything, unless you're diabetic. All right, that looks like all of them, guys. Hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next video. So I want to sit down and chat with you for a little bit. Peace.